Good morning, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for this kind of Q&A session with John and Richard from Bath. Richard, if I can just ask you to tell me just a little bit about how and when Bath Hacked got started, just so that we can kind of set the context for everyone.
I think it's important actually that when we did start, it was originally from the community. There was a bunch of guys on a local web forum were talking open data, and that led to a pretty random meeting with somebody from the council, a chap called Paul Gaunt. So I think it's important to say that we started the process from the community in that sense, and that's probably driven a lot of where things have gone from here. We had guys who had a specific set of data requests, and we kind of rolled from there. We didn't know who to speak to, we didn't know if anybody wanted to speak to us, but I think we were lucky finding the right people right from a very early stage, and the council were absolutely amazing. They were happy to listen. They pulled in the right people, and it kind of snowballed from that very, very humble kind of start.
Fantastic. So can I just ask, was the council already publishing data kind of before you first got in touch with them, or was open data something that the community was kind of interested in and approached Bath and North East Somerset?
I think it's fair to say that if they were, it was very randomly. There was no structure or form to it. It wasn't regularly updated. There was no kind of policy involved. There was sporadic bits of information that sort of appeared on their website, but there was nobody in charge. There was no management of it specifically, although they do publish a lot of information. But it wasn't under a sort of an open data guise. So, in terms of useful data for people like me, for developers. No, there was really nothing of that form.
And John, can I just check you're on the line with us?
I think we've just hit the first lesson of council IT, that it's not always great.
Okay, so hopefully we'll be able to hear John in a sec. So John, if you are connected, if you can just say hi as soon as you're able, and I'll start throwing some questions away. Okay, so Richard, we'll kind of carry on until John comes on the line. I guess what I wanted to check was, in Bath, what we've seen is actually something that's quite unique when we look across all of the organisations that Socrata works with, and all of the different government organisations that have an open data programme. I think you're one of the only ones that have that have looked to the community to actually kind of run and manage some of the open data kind of publishing and data curation. So kind of from your perspective, what do you think are the benefits in taking that kind of an approach?
Huge, to be honest, because I think from my own experience of open data, there's an awful lot of it that's very academic. A lot of it, comes from a very sort of centralised approach. And I think the reality is it's still early days, certainly in the UK, for open data. There's absolutely no roadmap for this thing. And I think we lucked out with the right approach, because we didn't try to be academic. We were walked in knowing that we had absolutely no ideas on how to do this. We didn't have all the answers, and we had to take a sort of step-by-step approach. So, it started in a very, very logical way. How can we get some data? And then where are we going to put the data? Who's going to update the data? Is there anything private in it? We had to take every little step in a kind of simple way. I mean, we also hit an issue when we started talking about it was, well, who's interested in this? I've seen a lot of open data initiatives where they kind of publish the data first and then try to get engagement, but we did it the other way around. We had a bunch of guys who wanted data. They knew specifically what they wanted, so we had that engagement, I think, from a very early stage. So I think it was in that sense, it was very, very simple approach. We wanted data. We went to the council and asked them for data, and the council were, again, I think this is massively important. I've talked about this a lot. I think the council were extremely humble about this, and I think that matters. They didn't have a sort of top-down approach. They weren't dictatorial at all. They put their hands up and said, look, we've never done open data before. We don't know what it involved. We don't really know what it is. So how do we do this together? And I think that kind of collaborative approach where we lined up the ducks and knocked them down one by one is really where we lucked out and found kind of a magic formula.
That's fantastic. So what we're going to do as we go through this presentation and this discussion this morning is actually pop up some polling questions for the attendees who are listening online. So if I can ask Michael, if you can pop up the first question for everybody, and we'll just kind of test the water a little bit about how organisations, for those listening, are approaching publishing open data. So you've got a very simple question here on whether your organisation is regularly publishing open data. So Richard, the guys in Bath, you have this kind of community of people through Bath Hacked, and I was really interested to see you've developed these kind of 5 guiding principles as a kind of cornerstone of developing that collaborative relationship. Where did these come from? How did you arrive at this kind of set of principles?
To be honest, those are based on quite long experience. Those principles. Actually, I'm going to rewind a bit. Just Bath Hacked is just a logo at the moment. We're not a formal body. We're going to have to formalise as we go through. So these principles that have come along, we're going to set up a not-for-profit company and get ourselves properly sort of constituted and funded. So we knew we needed to kind of write down some of the things that have worked for us, and the 5 guiding principles are really what we expect of the people that get involved with Bath Hacked, and what we expect of ourselves to give back to the community. So, I mean, do you want me to take you sort of through the thinking behind some of them?
That would be really helpful, please.
They're kind of, they're based on some experience. First up, be useful. This is probably one of the things that I think differs when you're doing open data locally or at a hyper-local level even. You know, in terms of, we're not a big local authority. Funding is very difficult for us compared to, say, one of the big cities. And we were very cognizant of the fact all the way along that we had to chime with the local community. And we've always said that, I mean, it's part of our strapline, be useful. And when we say be useful, that means building things or creating things that the community will see as valuable. We don't see ourselves as a particularly academic exercise, although that does have an element as soon as you're doing anything with data. So that was the first one. Be open. Open isn't just about data, actually. One of the things that worked really well in the group is, as a group, we've always been very open. We've always made sure that when new people arrive, it can be as simple as somebody standing up, welcoming you into the room and shaking their hand, and making sure absolutely everybody, regardless of their skills, I mean, we've got some really highly technical people and others less so. So we make sure that we try and create a culture where everybody's happy to walk into the room. We don't care what you've done before or where you've come from. If you're happy to give up your time for this, that's ultimately a community project, then we're delighted to see you. In terms of sharing knowledge, again, that's a cultural thing. We do have people with a fair range, actually, of technical skills, and actually latterly we're getting non-technical people as well. And it's always been a rule that information, that knowledge rather, should kind of flow backwards. So if you know more than somebody, it's your duty to really sit down and try and teach people who know less than you, and also be happy to learn from people that know more from you. Again, it's a cultural thing. As a group, we all want to share knowledge rather than compete against one another. Championing privacy, that has to be enshrined when you're dealing with open data. We haven't had a particular problem with any of the data sets we've dealt with yet, but you have to put privacy front and centre. I mean, in fairness, the council, Baines, they always work very hard on data and check things through to make sure we're not doing anything we shouldn't do and infringing anybody's privacy. But it's a core part of what we do. We're not here to delve into people's lives and create any issues. it's something that we treat as very important. The final bit, politics. When you're a community group, I mean, we've got about 130 people now engaged with Bath Hacked, and obviously all of us have our own opinions, and we have our own pet projects and whatnot. And we thought it was very important, especially with the range of other organisations that we have to deal with, that we can't ever be seen to be taking a line on anything. So if you do have political opinions, or any other kind of opinion, frankly, if it's you do park it, you leave it at the door. That's not something we kind of allow in, and that really is to keep ourselves as a sort of an honest neutral in the city. There have been issues where open data has butted up against political issues, or even just things in the local paper. And the trick is that you don't want to wade into those discussions and take a line. You have to be seen as neutral and honest, and that, going forward, that's going to be crucial to our neutrality and our funding. So again, that's very, very important. Have an opinion, just don't bring it to Bath Hacked. So that's really what we've developed over probably a year, actually, that we found. So it's creating an open culture ultimately, and making people play nice.
That's fantastic. So yeah, it looks like a very kind of a simple, common sense set of rules, but clearly born out of a lot of practical experience through the events and the work that you guys have been doing for a little while now. It's a shame John's not able to kind of to join in this bit, because I would have asked him about the kind of flip side of this relationship and how it has been for the council kind of engaging and running an open data program in this way. I don't want you to talk for John and for the council, but if you can just offer perhaps a bit of an opinion about how you think the council feels about how this has gone, and taking this quite kind of novel approach to running an open data program.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I've learned huge amounts about the council in the last year. My opinion of the council before I got involved with Bath Hacked, to be honest, was pretty toxic. I had a pretty low opinion of them, as I guess a lot of taxpayers do when you don't really understand what it is a big organisation does. I also, like a lot of people, you tend to treat the council as one sort of amorphous blob, and they're not. There's 4,000 people there. I would say that Bath Hacked has been very relationship-led. We found the right council officers at the right time. John in particular was in at a pretty early stage, and it was the relationships that we built personally. I guess there's always a personal element to these things that, and created a sort of culture between ourselves of problem solving. We all felt like we were pulling in the same direction. There wasn't an issue. We never had a sort of conversation that said, well, we want open data, and he said, no, we can't do that, and that was the end of it. We treated it as a problem to solve. Well, if we can't have this data, can we do it another way? Is there somebody else we can talk to? In terms of also building the relationship, I think when we started, we had very little data. It was in a really bad state in some terrible CSV files, and we had a hack at the end of March. And a lot of council people came to that hack, and they'd never been to a hack. They hadn't seen a hack environment before. We had council officers, and we had people at political level as well. And to be honest, I think that broke down a lot of barriers as well. We met people, we shook hands with people, we worked with people, and they saw a lot of ideas and a lot of energy in the room and a lot of things happening. That won over a lot of people in the council. That broke down the barriers. So we've never had an us and them approach. It's been a bunch of people in the room who wanted to do open data, who knew they didn't have all the answers, and we took a problem-solving approach to it rather than an us and them approach. Again, it's very cultural, and that goes back to the 5 sort of rules that we've built. So I can't say exactly from John's perspective. I know there has been pinch points and there has been things that we've had to sort, but he's always taken a very pragmatic approach to solving those problems.
That's great to hear. And as an ex-local government employee myself, I'm incredibly passionate about local government and the huge range of services they do provide. And I do think open data is a fabulous opportunity to kind of share with residents, as you've described, the kind of breadth and range of services that are actually delivered in an area, and I think it can certainly help give a different perspective on, on what it is that your local authority does and provides in your neighbourhood. If I can just dig in a little bit now and get a bit specific about some of the kind of data and data publishing, and I think we might have a polling question in that kind of area for people who are listening in as well. You guys have got a lot of really interesting data in your data store. Some of which is actually real-time or near real-time, things like air quality and parking. Can you tell me what's been the kind of most popular data and why you think that might be?
Actually, that's quite timely. I don't know whether you know, but Bath has a huge Christmas market every year that actually started this week on Thursday, and people come from all over the country. The town gets absolutely deluged, and just at the same time, the local live parking data went off like an absolute rocket. I guess certainly over the past week or so, that's by far and away been the most popular data set. There's a couple of solutions have already appeared. There's a guy about a month ago actually built bathcarparks.co.uk, which shows all the live parking counts, and latterly a local parenting site, Bath Mums, has also put the counts up, and people are looking at them on their mobile. It's a practical solution. It finds people a parking space at a very, very busy time of year when the car parks get full very, very quickly. So that's probably, I mean, that as well, that's been a win because I think it's scored with the public. The public suddenly get what we do. Oh, Bath Act found me a parking space, or told me that I couldn't park at Avon Street car park. People suddenly got what we did from that data set. So I think that's probably the jewel in the crown right now. Live data does tend to engage people more anyway, because I think it's it can be more exciting in the sense that it's it moves and throbs and changes. So yeah, what else? Gosh, to be honest, the rest of it, there's air quality, obviously. We had a hack around air quality. That's been really interesting. Probably not great from a PR point of view. I was hoping that the air quality in Bath, well, there was a sort of, the wisdom that abounded was that air quality in Bath was absolutely terrible. We did a hack on it, and we've been feeding live data on it. It turns out that air quality in Bath wasn't bad at all. So from a PR angle, that was a shame, because we kind of wanted some death and destruction and all sorts to get people around the idea of us doing open data that's interesting. But as it turned out, we were able to send out a very positive message that actually the city has got very good levels of air quality.
So actually, debunking perhaps some kind of local myths and using data to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. In terms of other data, education data is always extremely well used. We've got the crime data as well has gone down well. There was also one, now this wasn't particularly open data. We've got a chap, he's actually the sort of in charge of our data store, Lee Dodds, who did some smashing work with some historic maps. He scanned, obviously it's a very historic city, so we have a lot of maps of the city going down through the ages. He managed to scan those maps and overlay them exactly onto Google Earth. And in fact, his project and another project have come out of that, where people can look at maps of Bath through the ages, so you can almost time travel through the city. It's not open data as such, but it's open in the sense that it's all open source now, and it's been done around Bath Hacked. Again, that people don't need that information. It's not going to change their daily lives, but they're absolutely loving it. I know that the local schools have picked it up as a teaching tool. Completely different direction, not one that we'd have predicted at all. So we're covering a pretty fair range actually now.
That's lovely to hear. So how do you actually decide what to publish? Can people request particular data sets?
Yes, well, I mean, first of all, we've obviously got a line on requesting data now. So, as I said, we've got 130 odd local developers who are involved with HACT now, all giving bits of their time or lots of their time. They all depend. They've all got their own pet projects. So now Bath HACT has effectively given them a conduit into the council to ask for data sets. Generally, that will be John who will be the conduit for that request, and then he'll chase down whoever needs to be spoken to in the council to get that data. So that's our kind of data pipeline. In terms of agenda, I think the great thing is because we had engagement right from the beginning, and because we've got so many local people involved with Bath HACT, we don't have to manage data requests or drive them in a direction. They can ask for whatever they want. They are local residents, so the chances are they're going to ask for data that's interesting. So it's kind of been self-leveling.
Incredible. So I can't help but pick up on something you said there, Richard, which was you had 130 local developers involved. As an astonishing number. How have you done it? I don't know if there's a simple way to answer that. I know you're coming to Bath to take part as a judge in a recent hackathon, and could see that hack event was a very important part of your kind of engagement with that local developer community. Is that the primary way of getting this level of involvement?
Yeah, absolutely. In our first year, we've had 3 hacks, 2 very large ones, one smaller one on the air quality. And you can say a lot of different things about hacks and whether or not they produce viable products, but what they do is get a lot of people in a room thinking about a problem and highlighting issues. And it's publicity, so it's that. I think building a strong meetup group, tweeting a lot, doing you put those events out, and then you have something specific to publicise on a date and a time, and I think that was absolutely invaluable for getting HACT going and getting engagement going. I'll be honest, I'm not sure in year 2 whether there's a lot of discussion on whether hacks are going to be our main sort of event style. We may break out into more workshop style stuff, things that are more collaborative or smaller events. But in the first year, I think they were critical. Hacks get all the right heads in the room. You get developers in the room, and you get people from obviously the council at officer level and political level, all in one place, all thinking about things. So I'd recommend it to anybody. If you're going to do an open data project, I'd worry less about having beautiful data and more about having a hack to start with as a way to get people around it.
Advice there. I think if I can just ask Michael as well to pop up. We have a following question for our attendees on kind of engagement with the local developer community. One thing I wanted to kind of check in on as well was some of the most successful kind of civic developer and data-led events that we've seen have been able to engage some of the non-technical kind of community too. People who have an interest in data, in civic issues, but are not developers, are not coders. So, have you been able to involve those kinds of people from different backgrounds and with different valuable skill sets?
Well, we're starting to. On the last hack that we had, actually, we had a first-timers track, and that was specifically for people who'd never done anything with open data before. We didn't say that they had to have a completely non-technical approach, but as it happens, a few did turn up who had, they had no technical skill whatsoever, which was fantastic. So, yeah, it's something that we've started. We've had some success with. I'll be honest, it's one of the issues that for us in year 2, it's something that we'd like to concentrate harder on. Developers are kind of the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to getting open data going because their skill set allows them to do stuff with it immediately. But we do lack, and we want more creative involvement. In fact, we had a team at the last hack who they were both artists and didn't do data, had never done anything with data before, and they designed a kind of projector-based way for people to move around the city and engage with the city and have projections up on buildings of what people were interacting with. I mean, it was an absolutely fabulous idea. I'd love to see them get funding for it. it's not something that would have come from developers. It came from that creative brand strand. So, yeah, I think, to be honest, there's no easy answer on getting non-technical involvement. You have to reach out, put the hand of friendship out, and buy people a lot of coffee or a drink or two, and form those relationships. It has to be front and center. Again, that goes back to the 5 rules: be open and be useful. If you stick to those, then you will build those relationships.
Absolutely, and when I came along to your last hack event, that was certainly very evident that everybody was very welcome in that room, regardless of their kind of background and level of skill and knowledge about open data, and an awful lot got done, which is really exciting. As we're kind of starting to get towards the end of our time here, so I just wanted to shift focus a little bit and ask you about what's coming next. What's next for open data in Bath, and specifically what's next for Bath Hacks as an organisation?
That's a great question. I think I've touched on it a little bit, but I mean, first and foremost, we haven't got we desperately need to formalise ourselves. If for no other reason than we need a bank account. We've run the thing mostly on miracles. There's been little bits of cash that we've had to get other people to hold for us. It's a bit of a mess. So the first job, in fact, a job that we're doing right now, is to form a not-for-profit organisation that will give us a bank account and that allows us to start getting a more formal funding stream, which is an issue. As it happens, I don't think we need huge amounts of money, which probably makes life a little bit easier. So that's first, that solidifies us and allows us to go forward on a solid platform. Second is, to be honest, there's been a lot of debate. We had a big data curators night. Data curators night are where we get everybody together who's the sort of the core team who work hard on the data store. And it was an ideas night, and there is a lot of ideas flying about. As I said, I'm not sure that hacks are going to be something we'll concentrate on in year 2. It will be more workshop led. We have got in the new year our first workshop that there's a girl coder group in Bath who actually they're part of our steering group now, and they've got very involved. And we're doing they've got people with very little technical skills still at the learning stage. So we're reaching out and doing a learning workshop with them to try and effectively get some fresh blood into it, to get people using open data who wouldn't have done so before. So there's kind of an educational aspect to it all, and obviously carry on doing what we're doing. We have found one of the things, the curators nights, these regular once a month kind of meetups of people who are heavily involved in hacks to get around a table, share code, share data ideas, share best practice. Those have worked really, really well, and they're what made the data store interesting. So we need to keep those going as kind of top priority. Those are the core of what we do. So hopefully more of the same, but with some new people, with some to try and increase the community engagement.
Absolutely, and one thing I just wanted to ask a quick question about was you've got a great way of running a program here, and as I said at the head of this, one that's quite unique in terms of what we see working across different cities and areas, and it would be lovely to be able to bottle some of this and take it to other places. So yeah, helping other areas, is that forming a kind of part of your plans?
Yeah, I mean, we informally we've already been getting questions. I guess yes, that is absolutely going to be happening, because we're already getting asked. To be honest, I suppose people are going to be watching us like a hawk and seeing what happens in year 2, whether or not we keep the momentum up. But and I guess we need to try and figure out and bottle what it is that works. I think we know what has worked, but we try and keep our feet on the ground and keep learning. But certainly we're very up to look. We're passionate about open data, and if anybody reaches out and wants help or advice, or just to hear, for us to act as a sounding board, we're very open to that and happy to do so.
That's fantastic. So we're pretty much coming up to the end of this session. I will just point you to a few resources. As Richard said, Bath Hacked are super happy to chat to people about the work they're doing. You can visit them at bathhack.org, and you can see their data store at data.bathhack.org as well. You can look them up on Twitter, and just reach out generally to them, or through myself by the email that's on the screen there. And we'd be super happy to put anyone in touch to have a chat with Richard and John at Bath. So unless we've got any more questions, I will just say a huge thank you to Richard for joining me this morning.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Ben.
No problem at all. And I will say goodbye to everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for this webinar this morning.